Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. Hope you've had your first cup of coffee. Thank you all for joining us for our first installment of SCF's webinar series in 2021. My name is Joel Binstock, and I'm a manager of origination and partnerships here at SCF. And today, we're going to be discussing a little bit about how we can increase PPA conversion utilizing best practices that we have learned over the past 10 years. It's great to see so many familiar names and companies in the attendee list, but I also see quite a few that are new to SCF and not SCF Suite registrants. So I think it's best if we start with a little bit about who sustainable capital finance is and how we do what we do. We'll then get into the most common PPA challenges that we've seen over the past decade that can keep conversion rates low if unaddressed. Pinpointing these challenges has allowed us to tackle them head-on with solutions. And speaking of solutions, we're going to elaborate a little bit more about SCF's simplified PPA process and how we can go from initial indicative pricing through project execution in as little as 30 days. We'll also touch base on how to have a collaborative sales effort with our developer and integrator partners to maximize the level of communication and rapport with our customers. And like most of our webinars, we'll finish up with a Q&A session. So who is sustainable capital finance? We are a third-party financier of commercial scale solar projects, typically projects that are 250 kilowatts and up. We work directly with developers and solar installers to provide PPA financing solutions to their customers. Those customers include schools, municipalities, religious institutions, HOAs, golf and country clubs, community centers, nonprofit and for-profit entities. And our developers utilize the SCF Suite, which is our exclusive cloud-based software platform that enables instantaneous indicative pricing, project submission and proposal, term sheet, and agreement generation and execution. Speaking of the SCF Suite, in 2020, we launched the SCF Suite 2.0, improving the overall UI, as well as adding several new features, some of which we'll be discussing today. In 2020, we had over 220 new accounts register and a record number of projects entered totaling over a gigawatt of capacity, a benchmark that we're pretty excited about. Now let's tackle these challenges so that we can understand how to best come up with the solutions. One of the first challenges that we face in commercial scale solar are design iterations. Whether it's the customer's request to move a system to a different part of their property, or if it's equipment availability, or if it's utility or AHJ permitting purposes, there are going to be multiple iterations to your project by the time it gets executed. Those financing models behind those projects need to be as flexible and as malleable as those designs. The next challenge is complexity of agreements and documents. From financier to financier, there is a host of agreements and documents that are needed to execute on third-party financing. Developers also might work with multiple financiers and have to understand their legal requirements. All these complicated documents can lead to confusion, uncertainty, and unrest for the customer. The next challenge I wanted to discuss is a lack of transparency from financiers. Without transparency as it pertains to a timeline and an execution process, there is no systematic and programmatic approach to converting power purchase agreements at scale. So by providing a transparent timeline as well as how a project can ultimately get executed, the financier helps the developer get more comfortable, as well as reassures the customer that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Another large challenge facing the C&I sector is a lack of solutions for unrated off-takers. Sometimes when developers think of C&I PPA financing, they think of corporate investment-grade projects. That's not what we're discussing today. What we're discussing today are those that don't have public ratings or public debt. And the last challenge that we'll address is centered around communication. A lack of early and definitive communication between the off-takers and the financiers can lead to uncertainty, confusion, stress, anxiety, and a lack of confidence in the ability to convert the PPA. So let's tackle how we're going to address these challenges. SCF has established an 8-step process that can bring projects from initial indicative modeling all the way through agreement execution in as little as 30 days. We believe that if we follow these steps from start to finish, you can increase your PPA conversion substantially with your customers. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a deep dive into some of these steps. The first 4 steps can all be completed on the SCF Suite, so I'll toggle back and forth to show you how easy and efficient it is to run through these steps. Let's start with Quick Quote. Quick Quote is our PPA calculator. It enables our developer and integrator partners to solve for PPA rate or build costs using just a few project parameters like system size and expected output. You're able to optimize the project to various PPA term lengths, escalators, as well as offer additional solutions like our solar stimulus PPA, which we'll touch base on a little bit later. So now I'll transition over to Quick Quote so we can go ahead and enter a project so you can see just how fast and easy it is to generate indicative terms. When you log in, simply click on Quick Quote up here in the top right and select what type of project you want to get started with. You can see that we can offer a solar and a solar plus storage project. In the future, we will be launching a solar plus storage plus EV charging solution, so keep an eye out for a webinar that we will be hosting shortly. Let's use a solar project for now. I'm going to call this project Sample Project. The state will be California. The mounting type will be rooftop for simplicity. And I will assume a 1 megawatt system producing 1.7 million kilowatt hours annually. Here's where you have some flexibility to adjust for term and escalator. So we can offer anything as short as 15 years, upwards of 30 years for our PPA, and an escalator from 0, which is fixed rate, to a 2.5% escalator. Let's go ahead and enter a 25-year term and a 2% escalator, as well as a $2.25 turnkey cost per watt. Simply hit calculate, and the PPA rate will quickly generate based off of what we can support. If you want to modify and iterate, simply modify the variable that you want to change and click calculate again to spit out the corresponding rate. This addresses the first challenge by allowing flexible iterations that can be presented to the customer very efficiently and effectively. As you can see, our first step, Quick Quote and iterating, takes as little as 30 seconds. Once you optimize a project to meet your customer's objectives, you can go ahead and create a project. The next step in our process is project entry and submission. In addition, you'll be able to generate a savings proposal that you could present to the customer. Some of the new features with the Suite 2.0 include an autosave feature, simplified fields, and an improved summary page where you can see highlights of year 1 savings and term savings. In addition, we have modified our data room to be extremely user-friendly so that you can upload preliminary designs, avoided cost analyses, audited financials, and other documents related to diligence. Now I'm going to jump into a project so you can see just how easy it is to get from project generation to review. Here on the off-taker information page, you can enter all relevant customer information like the customer contact name, their title, as well as the address. In addition, you can add in utility information. This project will be in PG&E territory. The avoided cost will be 17.5 cents per kilowatt hour. In general, as a third-party financier, SCF encourages that the system is sized to offset typically 90% of historical consumption. In this case, let's assume 2 million kilowatt hours. For the annual utility inflation rate, let's assume 4%. This last section is a schedule where you can modify your target NTP date and COD date. After you complete this page, click Save and Continue to move on to the project details page. Here, on the project details page, you'll see some familiarity with Quick Quote. It'll carry over all your project parameters that you entered in Quick Quote. But additionally, you could enter in information like the panel manufacturer or the number of installs or parcels that this project is going to be on. In addition, you can modify your costs as well as adjust the financing terms if any changes have happened with the customer and their requests. Once again, you could modify this term to a 25-year term. Simply click Calculate, and the PPA rate will show right here. One cool feature that you can utilize from this page is the Create PPA Proposal button. I'm going to go ahead and toggle back over to the PowerPoint to show you a proposal. SCF developed a new savings proposal to provide our customers with a breakdown of their annual and term savings along with some additional information. We added a statement of qualification from Sustainable Capital Finance highlighting our PPA experience. In addition, we outlined clearly defined terms and savings. We also established the different parties and their responsibilities throughout the development cycle, and we also provide an expedited project timeline. This proposal, as mentioned, can be generated directly from the suite and shared with the customer, either alongside a term sheet or prior to a term sheet. If you like SCF to be a part of that call with the customer, don't hesitate to schedule a call with your project analyst to set up an appointment. Now let's complete the fourth step, project review. Simply save and continue. At this point, if there are any documents that you'd like to share, this is the data room where you can upload and download and access all of your documents. The term sheet will also be generated and populated in this data room. Let's move to the summary page. The summary page will highlight year one savings, average annual savings, and savings over the PPA term. In addition, it will show your project highlights and also enable you to do a few little actions. One of those actions is that you can close the project. If the project does not meet your customer's savings objectives, you can go ahead and close the project out, and that helps inform SCF so that we can better service your customers. Here, you can submit the project, which will trigger project review. When you click this, a term sheet pop-up will come up with some additional questions that you need to fill out. I'm going to enter in my name here. Additional questions include, would you like an SCF team member present for term sheet presentation, which we strongly encourage. In addition, you can provide details on when you're planning to present these terms to the customer here on this target date field. After all your inputs are correct, click Yes. Once the project is submitted for review, you can expect a response within 24 hours and a term sheet generated within 72 hours. Now let's jump into our term sheet. Our new short form term sheet has been condensed from 5+ pages to 2 and can be downloaded directly from the data room in the SCF Suite. In addition, the document can be executed digitally with HelloSign, allowing for a convenient and expedited execution process. Despite this being a very straightforward document, we do recommend that an SCF team member is present when presenting or discussing this document to ensure that all PPA questions are answered and a path to execution is firmed up. Now let's jump into our collaborative sales process. We recommend that you utilize SCF as a sales resource. We have experience completing introductory calls with customers, as well as going over savings proposals, terms, as well as term sheet review. In addition, we also have resources to provide when it comes to contract review for your customer and your customer's counsel. To establish a strong collaborative sales process, we've also added a live chat feature into the SCF Suite so that if you have questions when entering or submitting a project, you can ask them directly in the live chat and get responses immediately. Now let's discuss our PPA process recap. As you can see, I was able to get through the first 4 steps into project review in just a few minutes with relative ease. If we establish an early and frequent communication with the customer, it will lead to success and improved collaborative sales process. We do believe that if you follow this process diligently, you can get from quick quote to PPA execution in as little as 30 days. And as mentioned, because there are quite a few of you that are new to the SCF Suite, I went ahead and provided the SCF Suite registration link. Simply fill out the form and we'll activate your account in as little as 24 hours. If you do want to schedule a personalized demo as well, you can access that via the support center. And that's about it. So with that, let's go ahead and jump to the Q&A section.
So what markets are currently the most active for C&I? That's a good question. California still remains our #1 market, followed by Arizona, New Jersey, Ohio, and several other northeastern states. It's really where high cost of power and other project and solar economics kind of merge together to create viable savings for our customers. What off-taker types do you see the highest conversions with? Nonprofit entities that retain 3 years of audited financials are definitely the strongest to underwrite. so that it's a really clear sense into the health of the institution. So if it's religious institutions, golf and country clubs, community centers, as well as schools that retain audited financials, those are definitely going to have the highest conversion. When will you add EV charging to your solutions? Well, we plan on launching our EV charging solution later this quarter, but just keep an eye out in your email as well as the notification center in the suite when that solution will go live. And we'll also host a webinar. Will this PowerPoint be available after this webinar? Yes, we will. This is recorded, and we will put it into the video center in the support center, as well as on our YouTube channel. What's the most common reason why PPAs don't convert? That's a great question. So, as I mentioned earlier, unaudited financials and a lack of strong credit health is going to be the largest kind of challenge to PPA conversion. On top of that, really it's just project economics. Can the PPA generate compelling savings for the customer to go solar? What's the most common reason why PPAs don't convert? That's a fantastic question. So as I mentioned earlier, credit is a significant challenge to underwriting. And so that's why we always request 3 years of audited financials, typically before we issue a term sheet, just so that we can get credit review out of the way. We could speak directly with the customer's controller or CFO or COO to obtain those financials so that we can complete that review. The second reason, and really the main reason, is just overall PPA economics. If we can't generate compelling enough savings for the customer to switch to solar, then we're not going to be a viable solution for them. And so really we're looking at markets where there's high cost of power, as well as projects that are a little bit larger, totaling a minimum of 250 kilowatts, so that we can generate compelling total dollar savings for the customer. Does SCF utilize its own form PPA? Yes, our PPA is a short form PPA that we just came out with a new revision last year. It's 20 pages, and it's really easy to go through with the customer. How many agreements are needed for a PPA project? That's also a technical good question. So the 2 agreements with the customer are going to be a power purchase agreement as well as an easement agreement. That's just for us to access the system, to operate it and maintain it throughout the course of the PPA term. And then there's going to be an agreement with the installer, known as an EPC agreement, where they're going to be responsible for design, engineering, permitting, as well as interconnecting the project. So I think that's about it. If there are any more questions, I'll go ahead and, like I said, add them to the FAQ section in the suite. So feel free to access them there. And otherwise, you could always email me at jbinstock@scf.com. And you can use the live chat to reach out to us with those questions. And we'll get back to you ASAP. So with that, thank you so much for attending today. Really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope that if you utilize these techniques and these best practices that SCF has learned over the past 10 years, we can increase PPA conversion together. So with that, thank you and have a great day.